Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 15th of March, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar, falling lower again on the dollar index here. So we're just seeing that move below the cloud. And if we take a look at the euro, we see here euro is just holding on to its strength. So currency is fairly uneventful at the moment. The last week we've had a fairly quiet week. We see the dollar just moving mostly sideways, drifting down slightly, euro drifting up. Against the yen, we see the dollar here just weakening slightly as well, and sterling also weakening against the dollar just today very slightly, but has been rising on that weakening dollar, so quite key there as well. Taking a look at sterling against the euro, you see here sterling just holding on slightly ahead of the euro, but fairly flat, not a great big strong trend performance there. And against the Swiss franc, fairly flat there as well. And against the Aussie dollar, really just sitting around this 177 level, and it has been for some time. Bitcoin really fell heavily yesterday, and now just sitting around the $8,000 level. Has been below $8,000 this morning, so we're bearish in the short term, bearish in the medium term. We do have a downside target here to 5,100, so and 5.2 on the long-term chart. So looking like Bitcoin could still go lower yet, and a little bit worrying that we're starting to come through on that weekly cloud as well. Looking at the S&P 500 index. Down slightly last night, but just hitting this resistance level as we see whether we're going to move to a new high. We haven't done that on the S&P yet. The Nasdaq 100 index did do that, holding on to the 7,000 level. So we're just really what was resistance in January now becoming support, hopefully. But we just need to keep an eye on that. But it is looking like a market recovery in train. The Dow was down also overnight, about 1% down. So significant moves here that we're seeing in the markets as markets go through this fear and greed process of, are we going to see a new bear market, or is this a buying opportunity? So quite a lot of uncertainty just as we go through that recovery. And the Russell 2000 was down 0.5% overnight. So we're just seeing the broad-based recovery still looking reasonably good, just nearly hitting resistance, but just not quite managing to get above. The S&P future this morning up 0.25%. It is slightly bearish on the short term though, and looking at the Nasdaq E-mini, we're seeing here as well that we're up about 0.25%. So it does suggest that the US market will open higher today. And the FTSE 100, little change this morning, still in the doldrums really, and the same with the FTSE 250, just hitting some resistance here on the price on the cloud on the medium-term chart. The German DAX recovering somewhat. It's bullish here above the cloud. We've got an upside target of about 1%. New upside targets on the short term, but not yet activated. Still looks pretty bearish when you look at that chart. The CAC Quarante not looking as bearish. We managed to make a higher low rather than a lower low as we saw on the DAX. And we are bullish, but we are hitting some resistance here in the short term as well. Nikkei was very little changed overnight. The medium-term picture here is still bearish below the cloud. The Hang Seng also was up 0.25%, looking better than Japan, probably one of the better looking Asian markets, and still bullish on all three time frames. And the Chinese local market, very little change, just struggling to get through on the cloud there. The Indian market was down. It's just really struggling at the moment, the Sensex. So just bearish there in the short term. And the Aussie market was also down 0.25%. So just struggling to get into bullish territory there as well. Taking a look at commodities, Brent crude still below the $65 level. So just struggling around that point at the moment. And WTI at $61, again just struggling. So the $60 level will be quite key. US nat gas we see at $2.73. So again just bearish in the short term at the moment. So waiting for storage numbers today. Looking at gold, we see gold sitting at 13.25, just really stuck in these 13.20s at the moment. Bullish on the short-term cloud, bearish just on the point and figure. A break here, we see this tussle going on, waiting for the break. And of course, the long-term charts still look pretty good. Silver also very little change this morning, just struggling to hold on to its bullish trend. US Treasury yields stuck in the low 280s now, so 3% looking not on the cards in the short term. We've got 279 as the downside target. That's where we're headed. So is this a consolidation pattern before we make another move? But at the moment, we're just bearish on the bond yield there for the short term. Apple shares sitting at 178, just dollars, just really struggling to get going, but still did make a new high, so that is pretty good. Amazon, of course, being the star that we keep talking about, is the tech majors, is the one stock that really is just powering ahead, and quite the last couple of days, but still looking amazing. That trend is quite something. Google shares up reasonably last night, so again, just trying to get that recovery through. Facebook back into the mid 180s. The key thing is for Facebook, can they break into the 190s and stay there? And $200 would be pretty good. We've still got a lot of upside targets there. And last of all, I look at Microsoft as our last sort of tech giant. And Microsoft been a great performer over the last year or two, just continuing to look pretty strong, staying bullish, but just selling off a little bit overnight. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.